So today what we're going to do is, in the newsletter the other day, I pointed out 10 top ways that Pulse can bring you the right information at the right time to your fingertips. And we're going to use those 10 examples during our session today, and we'll see how that works out. But today we are going to talk about Monty Guy, who many of you know. He heads up our support and installation team. When he teaches the class, he focuses on the fact that people need to know how to sort, they need to know how to filter, they need to know how to group, they need to know how to use the column chooser, and once you master that, then you can pretty much do anything within the software. And that's a lot of what we're going to focus on today. So if you want to, and maybe, I guess before we get started, this is a little bit, we can all shake hands over the phone. Here's my picture, here's Ann's picture. But this gives you a little bit of background for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We've been in business forever. We have worked with Macola forever. We have worked with the Synergy software almost as long. We are manufacturing and distribution specialists, and we're located in Cincinnati, Ohio. So this gives you kind of an overview of who we are. This is the Pulse dashboard software, and I'm going to start here at the beginning. We're going to use our handout today, and there's a table of contents at the beginning. Maybe before we start, there's a section on page 1 at the top that says "Getting Started with the Pulse Dashboard Software." One of the uniquenesses about the software is that you're going to be seeing lots of data for the very first time, lots of data in one place, all at the same time. And there's a tendency to maybe be overwhelmed with your own data, but that's perfectly normal, and that will go away shortly. It probably would be good maybe to spend 10 or 15 minutes a day for a while to get used to the software. Maybe you have someone in your department or someone in your organization that you can sort of become a buddy with and exchange ideas. Maybe you can pinpoint 5 or 10 screens that you want to start using in your job. You can't hurt the software, so any change that you make is unique to you. It doesn't affect anybody else, so there's no fear of breaking anything or anything like that. We do offer unlimited phone support and unlimited training with all of our software. So if you go up here to Help and you go to About, here will be the direct phone number to our support desk, and then the email as well. Some people feel like they do better with email. Some people like to pick up the phone and talk to someone or leave a voicemail message. So again, we do offer unlimited phone support, and we offer unlimited training, and we offer unlimited, what we say, retraining. So if you have forgotten how to do something, there's never, you should never feel awkward about asking a question. Okay, so we have a table of contents that we're going to follow on page 1, but let's start off on page 2. At the top, I have the 10 ways that Pulse brings you the right information. And again, for those of you who may have missed the handouts because you signed up very, very close to the session, we'll be I'll be sending you the handouts after the session. But the top 10 ways, we're going to follow that to some degree, and those are areas that our customers are telling us that really help. In the middle there, it says, as a new user, where should I focus? And this is where we're going to focus a lot today: sorting, filtering, grouping, using the column chooser, and the right mouse button. When you click on, and by the right mouse button, I'm saying that you go someplace and you hit the right mouse button. Did it in the wrong place. You hit the right mouse button, and there's different options that come up, and we're going to talk about that today. So today's not a discussion of inventory control or production control or sales. We are going to use each one of those as examples, but the idea today is to learn the basics. So we have a lot of new people, rather people who are new to the software. So I'm going to, on the top 10 tip, the number 1 tip was top level overview of pending and invoiced customer orders. In other words, in the executive module here and the summary tab, we have this report. Okay, so this is something you're learning now. All of these reports, you just can grab them at the top. You can move them. You can copy and paste them just like Excel from any screen to any screen, and you can resize them. Okay, so we're going to talk about this screen in terms of information that you can get. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk just about these three screens, and the idea being that on this main screen, you can get a tremendous amount of information about your existing customer orders, pending orders, your backlog, orders that have been invoiced this month. How are you doing versus last month or versus last year? So let's just use this as an example here. We're going to use this screen, and we have orders that were entered, which means that they were keyed in this month or this year. They may or may not have been invoiced. We're going to look at invoiced orders, and then open orders means this is your backlog. These are orders that have not yet been invoiced, have not been shipped and invoiced. So the first thing we want to know, I want you to know, is when you click on something, I'm just clicking on, I'll do that again. I'm clicking on it with my left mouse button. Click on it with my left mouse button, and immediately I can drill down and see the underlying detail. And you can do that with all the screens. You can take this even to the graphs, and you can click on and look at the underlying detail. Okay, so we're going to look at this screen. This is month to date versus budget, year to date versus budget, the same month last year, year to date the prior year, and the total prior year. So the point we're trying to make is that you can just drill down, single click, left mouse, and you can see the underlying detail. And once you're in the underlying detail, there are a variety of ways that you can look at your own data. So sometimes you may want to look at it by date. Sometimes you may want to look at it by customer. Let's just take a look at this one, and we'll just take a look at it by customer. So these are inbound, incoming orders by customer, and they show the margin and the margin percent. And then there's a secondary drill down. If I click on any customer down in the lower section, then I'll see the detail. So what we're talking about here is the fact that we have drill down. It doesn't matter what's on the screen, but I want to introduce you to some of the things that we talked about before, sorting. So I can just click here. See this little caret, this little diamond caret here, triangle? If I click one way, it's ascending. If I click the other way, it's descending. I can also right-click and say I want it to be ascending or descending. This row here, this blank row is not an accident in the software. This is what we call the filter row. So if I want to bring on, maybe I have a long list of customers and I want to find Cincinnati. So I just type in CINC. And here it brings up Cincinnati distributors. So this is my filter row. We talked about sorting. We talked about clicking on to sort. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to look at these inbound orders, and I want to look at them descending dollar-wise. So here we are, descending dollar-wise. So we talked just very briefly now about sorting and filtering. But we're also going to talk very, very briefly right now about the column chooser. So what's the column chooser all about? Well, when I click here, it shows me all the data fields that are in Macola that I might want to be able to use on this report. So this is your report. Remember, if you make a change, well, something else is we can move these columns around. So maybe you like to have the name on here, and your coworker likes to have the number. Okay. So I'm going to click on this column chooser. We're going to use this as an example. I'm the product manager. This screen looks really nice, except it's missing the state. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type in the word state. But before I do that, one thing you can notice here is that there's no technical stuff here. We've converted all the data fields in the database to business English. So all I need to know is I just need to know the state, S-T-A-T-E. Everybody knows the word state. And then I see customer state, or say I know I want the customer state. So I can click on it and say add here, or I can just double click and it brought it over here. Now at this point, then here's the state. I'm going to drag it over here. So let's talk about that again. this grid here is the column chooser. And when I want to add a field, in this case, I typed in state, S-T-A-T-E, and then I double clicked and brought in the customer state. Earlier, what I had done was I had clicked on this down arrow, which allows me to have additional views beyond the one that I have. So the way that this works now is it remembers this. So I'm going to exit out of here and come back in again. And here's the state. So these are changes, remember, that are unique only to you. You're not messing up anybody else's screen. So we've talked about sorting. We've talked about filtering by using this filter row. We've talked about using the column chooser. We'll go over a lot more about that to add. And you know that when you get to the column chooser, everything is in business English. For those of you who may be a little bit technical, the other thing here is you don't have to know which file in Macola is this, like the customer state. I don't have to know where that is. Well, is that in the customer file? Is that in the state file? You don't need to know. The software does that for you. Okay. Something else that is important to know is that every single screen, if I click on this Excel button, it will launch Excel and it will export this screen to Excel. So it's going to bring up Excel just like normal, regular Excel. For some reason it's wanting to go slowly. And it wants me to give it a name. I'm going to give it the name Test1. And then it's going to say, so it's saved it now, and now it's going to say, do you want to open this? And I'll say yes. So what I'm demonstrating here is it's launching regular Excel. You know, there's a little bit of cleanup you can do. You can highlight it here and adjust the width of everything. So now we're knowing, and you can save that if you want to. I'm not going to save it. So what we've learned now is we can export to Excel, but we also can print. And I think what you'll find over time is you're not going to print a lot because you can go back into dashboard and reconstruct the view later. But there's a feature of this that I want to introduce you to, and it's not printing. It's the idea that from here, I can save this. I'm clicking on File. I can save this to a PDF or any of these other options. Or if I have the boss on the phone, I have a customer on the phone, a vendor on the phone, a coworker, I can save it to a PDF and then email it to that person. So what we're talking about then is drill down on everything. I can move the columns around. I can go to my column chooser. I can add another field. I can hit this drop down and see other ways of seeing things. I can export to Excel. I can export to a printer, a PDF, or I can email it. And on this one, I even have a double bonus in that I can click any place up above and then down below see the details. Now, let's say that you brought in a field that you didn't like. You brought in the wrong data field. You just drag this field up until it turns into an X, and then you let go, and then the field is gone. And there's no save function in the software. It's saving it as you make changes. It saves it immediately. And that's how it remembers the next time I go back in that I have removed that field that showed the state. Okay. So let's back up a little bit and talk about refreshing data. When you first start the software in the morning, you can say, I want to refresh the current module, or I can say, I want to refresh all the modules. What I can also do is once it's up, I can just, every screen has a blue bar, and I can say, I just double click, and that will refresh that. You see it only takes a split second. Or I can right click on here and I can say refresh the report. Okay, so we're going to talk about, we're on page 3. And for our top 10 tips, we were talking about that the first one is that we can find out anything to do with these orders. Let's go back and reinforce something. This gives us an overview, month to date, year to date, where we were versus last year and the total prior year. We can drill down on any of these. But some people like this screen, and I'll introduce you to the graphs. This is a graph of monthly invoiced, but there's also daily invoiced. There is actually they're companions, monthly and daily for invoiced orders, pending orders, and margin analysis. So I'm going to expand this. You know, we talked before, you can highlight any of these fields and you can click on them and see the underlying detail. Okay, I'm going to minimize the screen. So we're still on the subject of looking at what orders are pending. So let's take a look right here. This is really the operations screen. I think we have some operations people in the audience today. So let's go through an example. It's Monday morning, 7:30 in the morning. Everybody's to work early. Everybody's excited. We have a big shipping day today. We have $97,000 worth of orders we're supposed to ship today. We send people out with pick tickets, and 15 minutes later, they come back all discouraged and they come back mad because they can't find the product. It's not on the shelf. So what this is doing is this is saying, although you committed 97,000, you really only have 37,000 available on the shelf to ship. Excuse me. So this screen right here tells you now. Monday morning at 7:30, you can't recover from this. And we're going to show you a little bit later in another screen how you can anticipate over the next over 5 or 10 days and anticipate where the shortages are going to be and then do something about them so that you can ship complete. So this is showing you orders available to ship, back orders, shortages, orders that may be on credit hold, orders that were processed, were invoiced, but you forgot to post them. So this screen is also very, very important. Again, you can imagine, you can drill down, change the columns, export to Excel, whatever. I also want to introduce you to another concept. This 30, 60, 90, this may not be good enough here. You may want to see this in weekly increments, not in monthly increments. So all of the screens in dashboard have, when I hover over this blue bar, they have a red, we call it the red wrench, but it's the setup option, the setup icon. Every report has that. And this one's more complicated than the others, but this allows me to choose, do I want it to be weekly? Do I want it to be monthly? I can have up to 8 categories here instead of just 4. But for the most part, when you get the software, the settings should all be, your administrator should have set up all the settings. We also have, as far as this overview, the on-time shipping. And here what you can do is set up multiple ways of seeing. In this case, I have on-time shipping, 1 day late, 2 to 5 days late, over 5. The red setup allows you to have as many as you want. Well, you can have 4, but you can set the increments however you want to. You can right-click here and change this to be your corporate colors or your team colors. But the idea is that this allows me to see my on-time shipping performance. We're all concerned about that. If we don't ship on time, if we don't ship the product right, then the customer will most likely go someplace else. I also want to introduce you to the ability to take this. This is the on-time shipping for the entire corporation, but we have a concept called custom tabs, and that's what these tabs are. And what I've done is I've created this. This comes with your software. So let's say that we don't care about what the on-time performance is for the entire company. I want to look at it by customer. So I'm going to choose Cincinnati Distributors. And in this case, this is their on-time shipping graph. This is their margin analysis. This is their summary of orders. This is their open orders. And I can just choose how I want. Or if I want to look at this, if I'm the product manager and imported products are hot right now, so I'm going to go to imported products. And I want to look at my on-time shipping performance for a product line. So let this refresh, okay. So look at what we have here. Woo, woo, not very consistent. But if this is the kind of report that you like to have, you can imagine trying to do this manually or in Excel or in Crystal or something like that. This would take hours, and you wouldn't be able to refresh it, at a moment's notice. Okay. So to get back to the refresh on these icons, we have a printer icon, we have an Excel icon. This third one, which is the light blue circle, that's the refresh. We've talked a little bit about the settings already, and then we've talked a little bit about, we haven't talked yet about this filter, this funnel here, and we're going to skip over that right now. I don't think that's very important right now, but it allows you to create a filter for the entire report. Now, in our handout material, Monty is the one who developed this. We have all kinds of detail, and if I'm going too fast or too slow, you'll be able to look at this and read over this later at your leisure. But we want to give you something that you'll have and be able to go back and refer to. So we're now on page 4, because the question comes up is, well, this looks really great, but you told me earlier that I could take a report and I could copy it. I'm going to copy it and I could move it someplace. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this plus sign. Every tab, every module has a plus sign. And what I'm going to do is I hit the plus sign, and that means now I can do a paste, I can do a Control V, or I can paste it in. So what you're seeing now is I took a report from the executive module. I'll take a report from the, we'll take a report here from the inventory. We'll copy that, and we'll bring that over here, and we'll paste this in. So what we're talking about now is you can build your own little dashboard. Right now it says new tab, but I could make this whatever I want to. I'll call it Mike's Special Tab. And you can just refresh these just like normal. So you're seeing what I'm doing is I'm just double clicking on this blue line. So that's what happens if you want to add a new tab. You just hit this plus sign. But let's say that you're not copying a report from one place to another. Let's say that you want to do it a little differently. So you can go to this white space and you right click and you say, I want to add a new report, because maybe you can't remember what the report looks like or what the report name is. I'm going to add a new report. So let's say I go down here in purchasing and I want to add this top vendor report. So again, I'm in this white space, blank space. I do a right click. I say add a new report. I go down to purchasing and I'm going to add this vendor list. And here this is. And I talked before about how you can resize these reports. So what you can do is grab the upper left corner or the lower right corner, and you can move it around and resize it. In this case here, I'm a little tight for space, so I'm going to, I'm only going to show a few vendors, and then when there's too much room, there's a slide bar over on the right here that will work. And again, I'm just going to double click, so you can see how easy that is. So again, just to reemphasize that, I can take an existing report from some other screen, do a right click and say copy the report, or I can go to a white space, right click and say add a new report, and so on. And we'll come back a little later when we say add shared report. Those are custom reports that have been made available for your company. Okay, so we are on page 5, and I'm going to take this. This is talking about modifying reports and using the column chooser. I'm going to use this inventory status report. This is number 6 on our top list, but we're going to skip around a little bit. This is this inventory status report. And this, for those of you who are in the supply chain, purchasing, inventory control, or operations area. This is one-stop shopping to see what's going on in your inventory. A lot of times in the old days, people would say, well, just take my data and push it into Excel, email it to me, and I'll deal with it in Excel. Well, of course, as soon as you do that, it's obsolete. So this is sort of the same report, except it's real time. And if it's now in the middle of the afternoon, you just double click on it and refresh it. It'll give you the real-time information. So one of the reasons that we're talking about this, we're going to reemphasize our, well, let's talk about what's on this report first of all. It's normal kind of information, the location, the item number, the description, what's on hand. But all of a sudden, we start seeing these fields that are in the cream color. They're kind of yellowish. And these are fields like, where'd you get these from? These are not in Macola. Well, these are fields that we calculate within dashboards. So I'm introducing you to a concept where we're taking the raw data out of Macola and we're turning it into information. The Macola database is excellent, but it's just missing things, and then we've added those. So for example, if I go back here to the executive module, purchase order aging, we're taking the raw data in Macola. Purchase order aging does not exist in the normal Macola. So that's just another example there. We looked earlier about inventory turns. I talked about inventory turns. Again, we're taking the inventory transaction data and we're doing inventory turns with it. Inventory aging is another one. This is not excess inventory. This is dead inventory that nobody has touched. So here I have 2,700 items that have not been touched in the past, 1 to 2 years. And again, you can drill down. Once you drill down, you can use the column chooser, you can export to Excel, and so on. So let's get back to this inventory status for a minute, because we're emphasizing, we want to customize this report a little bit. So I forgot to add the on order or the allocated. So I'm going to go to the column chooser, and I'm going to type in here ALLOC. So I want the quantity allocated. Okay, well, this is a concept. Let's talk about this for a second. In this report, I specified the location. So when I would see on-hand quantity, I want to see on-hand quantity for just this location. But I can also see the on-hand quantity for all locations, or I can remove this column field, and then everything will roll up to be for all locations. So I'm going to emphasize, we have the on-hand just for the one location. So I'm going to come back in here again and put in O/H. And here's our on-hand. I'm going to sort this down so I can find things. I want to look at on-hand quantity for all locations. And then let's, I think that's good enough. Now what I like to do is just get it on the screen, and then from here I move it around. It's easier than doing it the other way. Okay, so we're not going to see any differences here in my test data, but normally if you had multiple locations, you could say, okay, well, I have 99,000 in the Cincinnati location. Oh, I have another 100,000 in other locations. And that's why that says all. But let's go back and talk about this information that we've added. And we do this several places, mostly in the supply chain inventory area. We're adding inventory turns to this. We're adding months of inventory on hand. If you see a 999, that means there's not enough data, there's not enough activity to calculate either inventory turns or months of inventory on hand. So I'll slide down here a little bit until we get away from these. So if you see 999 again, that's what it's for. Okay. We've added inventory usage. This is the average 3, 6, and 12 month average usage per month. We also have the total usage if you don't like that, but this prevents you from eliminates having to do the mental math in your head. But this is the most critical part here. Date of last usage, not in Macola. Date of last inventory activity, not in Macola. Date of last purchase, not in Macola. Date of last manufacturing, not in Macola. Date of last sale, same thing. So this information is vital to better manage your inventory, and we've added that. Now, this is another concept here that we're talking about, and that is that some people say, well, instead of looking activity downward, can I look at activity by month or so across the top? So here we have January, February, March, April usage, because in Dashboard, we keep track of 24 months worth of information on inventory or purchasing at any one point. Okay. So we talked about inventory status. Okay, so we've talked about modifying the reports, and I think at this point we sort of beat to death. We know the column chooser. We know that it's business English. Everything's been converted to business English. We know that we don't need to know what file it's in or table, that name. Now, if you are a little bit technical, if you hover over a field, let's find a field that's in Macola. If you hover over the field, it will show you the technical name, the file name, and the technical name where it came from. And if you didn't see this, as I scrolled across here, we have 12 months for the current year, 12 months for the prior year, for usage, usage quantity, usage dollars, sales quantity, sales dollars, returns, the same thing. What we purchased, quantity, purchased dollars, 24 months, produced quantity, produced dollars, 24 months, on hand, the same thing, dollars and units going back 24 months. Okay, so let's talk about some other things here. We're now on page 6. We've skipped over a few things that I want to show everybody. This is really applicable to the we have the shutdown from the coronavirus. Hopefully that has not affected many of you, or if it has, you're back to work. But this is our smart cash flow forecast. And again, we're taking the data that's in Macola, and we're looking at all the sources and uses of cash. As you can imagine, you can drill down. One thing that we're doing here, the reason we call this smart cash flow, is that in accounts receivable, a normal cash flow forecast would use the inventory due date, invoice due date, as the way of calculating. Well, customers don't pay you based on a due date. So what we're doing is we have changed this to age based on average days to pay for each individual customer, and you can set the number of months. So this is set to average days to pay each customer on a rolling 3-month basis. And we also have this set up so that you can incorporate non-Macola cash flow data. This is my payroll, not in Macola, loan payments, and so on. So what I've done here is and we're not going to dwell on this too long, but I can do what-if analysis. So I took the latest enhancement that we made to the smart cash flow forecast was to say if all customers pay us 20 days late, or if all customers start paying us 20% late, what's our impact going to be? And it's dramatic here. The 20 days, we go from 194,000 to 22,000. So our cash flow just did not go well. Okay. I want to talk about something else that we've done that affects everyone, and that is shortages. We have developed our own MRP software in Dashboard. There's nothing wrong with Macola's MRP software except that our customers come to us and say, show me the shortages, show me the shortages. So we have what we call a zero setup, a no setup cash flow. So MRP. So let's go back to this example that we had earlier. Customer orders. Remember, it's Monday morning at 7:30 in the morning. We sent the pickers out. Everybody came back unhappy. We can't recover from that on Monday morning. But in customer service, we can anticipate. So what I do here is I'm saying it's now the week before, and I want to look out the next 5 days, and I want to determine what finished good shortages do I have. So we're talking about concepts now of shortages. So I have 21 items that I'm not going to be able to ship on time unless I do something. So let's drill down and see one of them. Okay, here we have, these are all past due. We have a replenishment that's coming in production, but it's coming in too late. We needed it up here, and it's coming in way too late. Let's take a look at another one. Similar kind of story. Production is, there's something going on in production there. Same thing here. But the idea is that you can work with this. Maybe you have to lean on production. Maybe you have to call the customer. But the idea is that over the next 5 days, you can work this and keep getting this list down. And then maybe when you're comfortable with this, the idea would be, let's go in and see what it looks like over the next 10 days. And for those of you who are a little technical, that just did a total MRP regen. I'll do this again. Double click there. 1 second, maybe 3/4 of a second. That's a full MRP regen. The same concept exists in the production area, where I'm going to look at production shortages. These are components, not finished goods. Again, if I look at 5 days, click here, that was a full regen. So this is why we use our MRP instead of using Macola's MRP, and then there's no setup. So you do not have to use Macola, you don't have to have or be licensed for the Macola setup or Macola MRP. So I'm back to our 10 top ways, and I'm kind of checking them off here. Let's talk about some other areas that are important to know about. And we're going to look in the sales area. We're still using our handout, but we're using more popular examples. One thing that we've done in Dashboard, because in Macola there is no sales forecast repository. There's no place to put in your sales budget or your sales forecast. So about 10 years ago, we had a customer come to us and say to us, I want to be able to track anything by anything. And we said, well, what does that mean? He says, I want to be able to track by product category, by customer, by territory, by customer type, by salesperson, by whatever, the user-defined fields. And I want to track those month to date, year to date, quarter to date, the same month last year, the same day last year, the same month last year, this month versus last month, this month versus the same month last year. I want the list to be endless. I want to have total flexibility, and we've achieved that. So let's say that at this point, your budget is in Excel, your forecast is in Excel. We can import that, and we can make adjustments. If you're just getting started in forecasting, you can create, within Dashboard, you can create your forecast from history and then make adjustments. This is allowing you to make dollar adjustments or margin adjustments. If you are on a different cycles, seasonality, you can adjust them here. And you can have this by customer, by salesperson, by item, items within customer, by shipping location, by item, and so on. And for each one of these, you can have it be dollars, units, average selling price, and target margin. And I believe that there's somebody in the meeting today. I'll say thank you. I'm not going to identify who you are, but they had a need several years ago, and they wanted to budget for every Walmart location in the United States, every distribution center. So they had the customer. The customer was Walmart. The alternate location was each one of the distribution centers, and then by item. They wanted to be able to budget that way and then be able to track that. Okay, so now I have this in here. I can have an unlimited number of budgets. So the idea being that we'll just use this as an example, sales by customer. I have month-to-date invoiced versus budget and the difference. I have my margin. That's something else that we've added. You saw that a little bit earlier. And then I come over here and I say year-to-date margin, how am I doing versus budget, and so on. So just to give you a feel, we won't dwell on these, but I mentioned month to date, so I'm going to just put in month to date here, and I'll give you a feel. We've created about 400 formulas that allow you to look at, and I'll sort this down here. that allow you to look at whatever you want to look at in the month-to-date area. So this is month-to-date dollars, and then we have quantities, we have margin, just some other words here. PM stands for the prior month, so I can look at this month versus the prior month, or I can look at this month versus the prior year, and so on. So again, in sales and marketing, the column chooser explodes because I have month-to-date, I have monthly activity, yearly activity, and quarterly activity. But from that, just some examples here, I can look at it by customer, I can look at it by product category, by salesperson, by territory, by anything that you want. And for those of you, there are some people I know on the call today that are using the user-defined fields in Macola extensively to put in supplemental, maybe the brand name or the sub-brand, and the user-defined fields can be used in here also. So just to give you a little hint, this report, when I right-click on this blue bar, it tells me the name of the report. And in sales and marketing, there's only one report. It's called Sales Analysis. So the only difference between this one by customer, this one by product category, this one by salesperson, the only difference is what's in this first column. So if you wanted to take this report, copy it, and make it something else in this first column, it just uses the entire report just as it is. I talked earlier about the ability to look at things by month. So this is very popular in every company, and that is the analysis of monthly margins, to look for any kind of monthly margin, what I call it margin erosion. So I'm looking here at month by month. So this is, in this case, January, February, March, April, June, they're backwards. But I'm looking at this by product category. And I'm looking down here, instead of looking at this by item number. So just want to let you know that this kind of analysis, and these, oh, I should mention also that we have I talked before about the standard reports if I want to add a new report. So these are all the standard reports. But we just issued last fall, we issued what we call our catalog of custom reports. So there's some reports here that you may be seeing that are not in your system, and you can call us, and they're free. There's no extra cost. And then periodically we publish this catalog where you can say, okay, Monty, I want to order E1 and P4 custom reports. But what we're really talking about here is the ability to be able to look at anything across the top month by month by month. Okay. So let's go back to our handout. We're on page 6, and we've talked about filtering already. We've talked about sorting already. We've talked about filtering already. There's a concept of save and share, and there's a concept of publishing. Let's talk about that for a minute. So let's say that you develop this whiz-bang report, and we can go back here to the executive, and we had this new tab here where were we before when we had this new tab that I guess it was here. Mike's special tab. Okay. So what I can do here is maybe an extra precaution. I can right-click on this tab name. I can right-click, and I can say, I want to save and share this tab. So what this means is that I can save this. I clicked on that. I can save it just for myself, which is a backup, or I can save it for everybody, or I can make it just selected people. So this is the save and share. So there's a big difference between this and publishing. If I publish the report, the other user sees it immediately. If I save and share this, it just means that you need to send an email to everybody and say, I developed this whiz-bang report. If you like it, go to, and you can import it. They can import it. So publishing is different. I'm going to right click again. I'm going to say publish. The little boxes are the same. I can publish it to everyone, except to publish, I have to be an administrator or I have to have publishing rights. So let's talk about the way people use data. We have people that don't. We have people that want you to give them the report to analyze. In other words, you develop it, give it to me, and I'll use it. And then we have other people that just love developing reports, just love analysis reports, and they drive the whole organization. So at the upper end, if you're one of the people that drives, then you then in effect can publish your whiz-bang reports to the entire organization or to individual people on your team. And then once they exit, the next time they exit from dashboard and come back in, that this Mike's special tab will be right there on their in their financial tab. So now save and share can be used for other purposes also. We use it if you call us up and say, I heard about this report or I saw it in a training session, will you send me a copy of it? We now can email you copies of reports. And what you do is you click this down arrow here and you say, I want to import the report or load it from file. But we give you instructions, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we're on page 8. We've talked about publishing. One of the things I want to do is I want to go back and look at the remaining top 10 things that we haven't talked about. We talked about, I think we've done the first 7. One of the goals of our company, we're the leader in the Macola market in developing a number of add-ons, a number of utilities that help eliminate manual entry. And one of those is the elimination of keying in customer orders, keying in customer cash receipts, and keying in purchase orders. So the purchase order part, I'm going to go up to the top here. I'm going to talk about, this is our Pio Generator. And the idea of this is make believe that I'm Penny and I'm responsible for the Cincinnati location. And when I say refresh, now this is based on the rules of your company. It's going to show all of the items that need to be purchased that Penny's responsible for each of her vendors. So the idea being that I can hit the plus sign and it shows I have 3 items. I'm going to go ahead and maximize this. I have more than this. These are all the items that need to be ordered. So I can say, okay, this looks good. This looks good. This looks good. All of this information is to show you if there are vendor contracts. This one, I think the data is wrong. We really need to order 500 of these. And I want to order that. Okay. So I'm not going to order the rest of these. I'm just going to go up here and say create the purchase order. And there it is. So total elimination of manually keying it in. Now this yellow means I made a little mistake. My setup was wrong. This really requires a minimum of 60. So I'm going to change that to 60. Same thing down here, minimum of 60. So you can see when I change this, it highlights it. It's not red, so it will allow me to go forward, but it's telling me I did it wrong. I can make this a released or an unreleased order. I can even change the vendor if I want to. If I am weight oriented, I get discounts for weight, or if I get discounts for cubic meters, or if I'm filling a container, it's telling me down here what my measurements are. If I hit save, in this case, it would generate an unreleased purchase order. Oh, I can also, if I decide here, I'm not going to order this at the last minute, I take that off. I'm not going to order this one. I'm going to take this off. Or I could hit the plus sign and add additional items on the fly. So when I say save it, then these go away, and then Penny then continues to go down. And the idea being that anytime you refresh this, it's going to show you based on the rules for your company. Some people use number of days on hand. Some people use reorder levels. There's all kinds of different ways that, and in the setup, then we adjust the software for that. So I just wanted to show you, this is part of our Pulse dashboard. It's an optional module, so not everybody who's listening today is going to have that, but it's important for you to know that. We have a lot of purchasing, supply chain, operations people today, and the idea is total elimination of manual keying of purchase orders, tedious keying of purchase orders. So let's kind of review a little bit of what we've talked about today. Maybe I'll just go back to this same screen that we had earlier. There's maybe one other thing I should talk about. In each of the modules, and this is in our catalog, we now have what we call data integrity checks. And what those are going to be, we have one for inventory data checks. That would be bills of material where the parent item is not on file, bills of material where the component item is not in the item master file, items with invalid product categories. We also have in the summary, we have a lot of exceptions, items with no cost, items with no material cost type. Here's the one I love to have, I bet people's lunches on this. Items not counted in the last physical inventory. And then we have the same thing on purchase orders. Purchase orders that were accidentally issued with a no unit price. Purchase orders where we have a header with no lines or lines with no header. That's something else that and those are all available in our catalog. So if you call Monty and say, Monty, I want all of the data integrity reports. So let's kind of review a little bit of what we did earlier. I'm going to go back to the executive module in a summary. We've talked about that we have drilled down on everything. I think everybody knows that by now. And that we have the ability, and this is where dashboard is, we feel is unique across not just Macola, but everybody. The ability to move these columns around as you want to. The ability to add new columns without having any data processing, any IT knowledge, without having to go to your IT staff and go back and forth. No, I really wanted this field, or I want to move to the left another inch. No, you forgot it was supposed to be sorted in a certain way. Or no, I only want it for certain customers or certain items or certain product categories. This concept of linking, okay, what file is this in, totally goes away. We do that's part of the magic of the software, is that we handle this. The linking concept is technically what is called the linking of tables, is completely, has completely gone away. We do all that magic in the background. And we haven't really talked about it, but if I was to add the item number, I'll just do that to show you. This is a summary report by customer, and this has a summary for the customer. But if I was to add the item number, watch what happens. The whole personality of this report changes. The entire personality changes. At this point, we've inserted the item number. We don't know what the order is. This could be ordered on 5 orders. This order quantity and the margin, they completely adjust themselves automatically. Remember before, this total was for all items for Akron distributors. Now it's broken out. And if I was to add the order number, I get that. If an individual item was on 5 orders, then it splits it as well. So it's this, what we call this automatic roll-up or automatic splitting is handled for you, and you don't have to worry about that at all. And that's something that you may just take that for granted. And so I'll go back to what we had before. I'm going to, the totals will stay the same. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the order number. That rolled it up. And now I'm going to get rid of the item number and that rolled it up even higher. So we feel what you just saw then doesn't exist anywhere, on any platform, any place. And so we appreciate you having our software and using it and coming today. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We asked for an hour of your attention. You gave it to us. We really appreciate it, and we're very, very grateful that you're using our software. We have well over 1,000 individual people using the software every day, and it's very, very gratifying. We also are constantly enhancing the software. So, yeah, I may think it's great software, but we know that you as the customer know really what's best. So if you're running into situations where, even if it's unique for your industry or your business, I need a report that does such and such. If you took this report and you twisted it around, that would really be what I need. So feel free, go up to help, go to about, call this phone number, email this address. We love to get feedback, and we are, at the beginning, we thought we knew what people wanted, and then very quickly, 15 years ago, we figured out we really didn't, and you are the ones who have driven this, the past 15 years. So we appreciate it, and stay safe. Have a good week. Hope the sun shines warm, the temperatures warm up, and we appreciate your business. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.